and welcome to the third video of the Aiora Blue Carbon Hub video training series. My name is Anna Lafratta and today I'm going to show you how to open and slice a sediment core that has been collected with a PVC pipe. This is the equipment that we are going to use today. We will need an electrical saw, some gloves and glasses. We may need a blade, then we will need some permanent markers, and we will need a screwdriver with a flat head. We will also need some gloves to use during the process of slicing the core. And then, of course, we will need our containers or zip bags. The dimension of the containers will depend on how much sediment you are planning to put into them. Then, of course, we will need our ceramic knives, possibly of different sizes, because this could help you during the slicing of the core. Then we will need a plastic spoon that is always useful to collect the sediment, a brush, some containers, some tray that can go into the oven. Then you will need a long ruler, some phone or a camera to do some pictures of your core, and then, of course, our laboratory spreadsheet. It's time to go to the workshop and open the core. Before using the electrical saw, remember to draw 2 lines on top of the pipe. And for an easier cut, also remove the tape from both ends. We are now back into the lab after we use the electrical saw and we open the pipe. As you can see, I remove all the tape from both sides of the pipe, and now I'm ready to flip this part of the pipe up to see the core inside. Before doing that, I'm gently gonna tap the screwdriver on top of this side of the pipe to assure that the sediment is not gonna get attached to this part of the pipe, just like that. And once I'm ready, I can finally remove this part of the pipe. And as you can see, this is our core. Perfect. Before start processing the core, you will have to make a plan. How do you want to slice your core? What is the resolution that you want to apply to the slicing? Those are all questions that you will have to answer in advance, and that will depend from your research question. Also, you will have to decide if you want to account for the compression right now in the lab or later on your dataset. To see how to calculate the thickness of an uncompressed slice or vice versa, please go and look at our previous video. Once you've decided the thickness of your slices, make sure to mark each of them on the pipe, the same way I've done here. Make sure to do it on both sides of the pipe so that this can help you during the processing of slicing the core. Start from the 0 and then keep going. Today, we chose to slice 2 cm thick slices. Now we can finally have a proper look at our sediment core. Remember that it's very important to take notes while describing the core. So, is the core changing in color? Is that something that we see inside the sediment, like fibers or shells? Is the sediment text changing? Those are all questions that we can answer just looking at the core. For example, if we look at our core, we can see that this part, which corresponds more or less to the top 56 centimeters, is very sandy, and you can see that there are lots of seagrass fibers in it. But then suddenly, around 60 centimeter depth, you can see that the sediment changed and became more clay. So those are all things that we should write on our laboratory spreadsheet. It is very important to take notes of the description or the core ID, and then after you will start writing your samples. Remember that it's very important to take pictures of your core to keep it in the record. This is important because the way the sediment looks like can already give you an idea of the organic carbon content of your sediment. So in the future, you want to go back after you get the results and look at your picture. Remember to write the core ID somewhere and put it close to your core before doing the pictures. Our core today is called DV1, so I'm just going to place it here. And I'm going to make some pictures of the core. One of the total length. And then if I want, I can go closer and do picture of sections of the core. This way, I will have a better look later on as my sediment. Prepare all of your containers or bags before starting to slice the core. Ideally, you want to use some rigid containers, some plastic containers. However, sometimes you cannot find them, so instead you can also use Ziploc bags. In this case, that's what we are using. On each bag, write the ID of your sample. As you can see, our core is called DB1, and then I put the number 2, which is basically the ID of our first slice. Once you've chosen the container that you want to use for your samples, make sure to take an average weight of about 10 of them. You will use this number to subtract it to the final dried weight of the samples later on. Now it's finally time to cut our core. For doing that, we are going to use ceramic knives. And as you can see here, I have different sizes. This is going to be useful in case you need to cut through fibers or other things like that. For the moment, I'm just going to use the biggest one because what I want to do is to make a cut that is as much as possible perpendicular to our pipe. And to do that, I'm going to try to match the same number from both sides of the pipe. Just like that. Then I'm going to cut through very slowly because this sediment, it's very sandy. Yeah, and once you manage to slice the top part, you want to go perpendicular this way to the sediment. You will have to do this very slowly because you don't want to destroy the cookie. As you can see, this core is very sandy, so sometimes it may be difficult to cut in order to have a perfect slice. So depending on the nature of the sediment, you want to be using, for example, a smaller knife that can help you to avoid pushing too much the sediment away. The small knife, it's also useful to cut through roots of mangroves, for example, or in this case, of roots and fibers of seagrasses. It is very important to slice the core in a proper way. We want to almost have a perfect cookie when we are slicing our slices. This is very important because this will be reflected on the dried bulk density that we are going to calculate later on, and consequently on the organic carbon stock. When you calculate the dried bulk density, in fact, you divide the grams of the sediment for the volume of that cookie. And that it means that if you are slicing the cookie with the wrong angle or not matching the volume of that thickness, then you will have the wrong dried bulk density. While you are slicing your core, remember to use your laboratory spreadsheet to take notes of each of the slices that you are cutting. Now we need to put our sediment inside the corresponding sample ID bag. It is important that you collect the entire sediment that is part of that sample. Otherwise, that may affect, again, as I said before, the dried bulk density. To do that, we may use a plastic spoon to help ourselves. We finally got to the end of our core, so I just need to slice the last cookie. That is gonna go all together in our final bag because it's the bottom of the core. And here we are. Once you have all your samples, you can take a tray, any kind of tray that can be in an oven that is gonna be at 60 degrees, and put all your samples inside. Make sure that they are well open. For the bags, I usually turn the top. And once you have all your samples ready, you can just go and put them in the oven. Done. The samples are now in the oven. We put the temperature at 60 degrees and the sample will need to be there for around 2 or 3 days until constant weight is reached. And that's it for today. I'm looking forward to see you in our next video.